The bass shook the floor, the lights cut through the dark in sharp flashes, and Lorenzo De Luca was seconds away from telling his men he was bored and ready to leave, until he saw her. She was in the middle of the crowded dance floor under a moving circle of red and gold light. At first she was just another woman in a nightclub. Then she turned slightly and he saw her face clearly. His maid. Lorenzo froze where he stood, one hand still resting on the back of the leather booth. For a moment the noise of the club faded. He saw only her. She wore a tight red sequin dress that hugged every curve of her body. It shimmered with each small movement she made. The hem brushed mid-thigh, showing long, toned legs that he had never once noticed in the mansion, hidden under a plain skirt and flat shoes. Her dark hair, usually pulled back in a low, practical ponytail, fell loose around her shoulders in soft waves, catching the colored lights as she moved. Her eyes were closed. She was smiling. Not the polite, small smile she sometimes gave in the kitchen when another maid made a joke. This was different. Real. Warm. She tilted her head back slightly, letting the music wash over her, and moved her hips in an easy, natural rhythm. She was not trying to impress anyone. She was dancing for herself. "Boss?" Anthony Collins leaned closer, trying to talk over the music. "You good?" Lorenzo ignored him. "Emma Parker." He said her name in his head as if he had never heard it before. She had been working at his mansion for almost 6 months. He knew the basics. Quiet, punctual, respectful, never late, never causing problems. She wore the same simple uniform every day, hair pulled away from her face, eyes down whenever he passed by. He had never seen her like this. He had never seen her at all. "Lorenzo?" Mark Hayes followed his gaze, then let out a low whistle. "Now that is a woman who knows how to enjoy a Friday night." Lorenzo shot him a warning look without saying a word. Mark raised his hands in surrender and leaned back in the booth again, reading the message clearly. Do not talk about her. The club was one of his. It sat in the heart of downtown, hidden behind a plain black door on a busy street where tourists and locals mixed without knowing whose territory they were walking on. Inside, the place was all polished floors, dark walls, and expensive lighting. People came here to forget their lives for a few hours, to drink, to dance, to pretend nothing waited for them outside. Lorenzo had been here 1,000 times. He had never once felt his pulse jump the way it did now. Emma turned in a slow circle, letting the beat guide her. Her hands glided up into her hair for a second before she let them fall back down along her sides. Her dress caught every flash of light, making her look like the center of the room, even when no one else seemed to realize it. How many times had she walked past him with a tray of coffee or a basket of clean towels, and he had barely lifted his eyes? How many mornings had she quietly wiped the counters in his kitchen while he read reports at the table, not once wondering what she looked like outside that house? He felt stupid and annoyed at himself. "Who is she?" Anthony tried again, leaning forward. "You know her?" Lorenzo still did not answer. His jaw tightened slightly. He straightened, adjusting the cuff of his dark shirt out of habit, every inch of him slipping into the quiet focus he usually reserved for business deals and negotiations. He watched Emma laugh at something her friend said. The friend, another woman in a black dress, leaned in close to her, shouting something in her ear over the music. Emma laughed harder, pressing a hand to her belly, eyes still closed. Her shoulders relaxed. There was no tension in her posture. At the mansion, she always carried a subtle stiffness, a careful distance. Here, that armor was gone. He wanted to see that laugh up close. He wanted to know what it sounded like without the music swallowing it. "Boss, you want another drink?" the waiter asked at his elbow. Lorenzo barely moved his head. "No." He stepped away from the table, ignoring the questioning looks from his men. Years of being who he was meant people rarely questioned anything he did out loud. They watched, they learned, they adjusted. No one tried to stop him as he moved past them and toward the edge of the dance floor. He did not push anyone. People parted for him naturally, partly because of his size. Tall, broad shoulders, the kind of presence that drew attention even in a crowded club, partly because they recognized him. Even if they did not know the details, they knew the name. Lorenzo DeLuca. The man behind half the businesses on this side of the city. The man you did not bump into without saying sorry. He walked slowly, not wanting to rush and draw even more attention to his destination. The closer he got, the more details he noticed. A thin gold chain rested at the base of Emma's neck. Simple, elegant. Probably not expensive, but on her it looked like it belonged there. Her lips were painted a soft red, matching her dress. Her cheeks were flushed from dancing, a light sheen of sweat on her skin catching the light. He had seen her hands many times, scrubbing, polishing, wiping. He had never seen them like this. Fingers relaxed, nails short and neat, moving through the air as she danced, completely unaware of who was watching. The music changed, blending into another track with a heavier bass. The crowd shifted with it. Emma's friend grabbed her hand, spinning her around. For a second, Emma's face turned fully toward him. Her eyes opened. Lorenzo expected shock, fear, maybe even panic at seeing her boss in the middle of her escape from reality. Instead, she did not see him. Not yet. Her gaze passed right over him, unfocused, still caught in the haze of the music and the lights. Then she closed her eyes again and let her head fall back, arms lifting slightly as she moved. He felt something strange in his chest. Not the sharp, tense feeling he got during dangerous meetings or difficult decisions. This was softer, but just as intense. It annoyed him how much he felt it. He reached the edge of the dance floor and stopped for a second, watching her from only a few feet away now. The scent of her perfume hit him, light, something with vanilla and a hint of flowers, nothing heavy or sharp. It mixed with the smell of sweat, alcohol, and the faint trace of smoke clinging to some of the people around them. Lorenzo stepped closer. His shoes brushed the line between the polished floor around the VIP area and the slightly sticky surface of the dance floor, marked by spilled drinks and 1,000 careless footsteps. The music vibrated in his chest. He could feel the bass in his ribs. Emma moved again, turning slowly. This time, when her face came around, she opened her eyes and saw him. Her body froze mid-step. The smile fell from her lips, replaced by a look that went from confusion to disbelief in a single second. Her chest rose and fell quickly as she tried to catch her breath. Her hand tightened around her friend's for balance. "Mr. DeLuca," she mouthed, rather than spoke, the music swallowing any sound she might have made. Lorenzo did not smile, but his expression softened, the edges of his usual hard stare easing as he looked directly into her eyes. "Emma," he said, loud enough for her to read his lips if she could not hear him. Up close, she looked even more different. Without the uniform, she seemed taller, her posture more open. Her eyes, which he had always thought were a simple brown, were actually a rich warm shade that caught the light like honey when she turned her head. For a second they just stared at each other, motionless in the middle of moving bodies and flashing lights. He saw the exact moment the reality of where they were and who he was hit her. Her shoulders tensed. Her hand flew automatically toward the hem of her dress, as if suddenly aware of how short it was. She straightened, eyes wide. She looked like she wanted the floor to open up and swallow her. Lorenzo took another step toward her, closing the distance between them. There were still a couple of feet between their bodies, but it felt much smaller. He leaned in slightly, trying to make his voice reach her over the pounding music. "I didn't recognize you at first," he said. "You look—" He stopped himself before he said the word beautiful. For reasons he did not fully understand, he wanted the first time he called her that to be when she was not panicking. Emma swallowed hard. Her free hand clutched the small purse at her side, knuckles white. Her breathing still had not fully calmed from the dancing and the shock. I'm sorry, sir," she said, her voice shaking as she finally found sound. "I didn't know this was your club. I mean, I did, but I didn't think you would be here tonight. He held up a hand, suddenly aware that she thought she had done something wrong. "You don't need to apologize," he said. "You're off the clock." He had never said anything like that to any member of his staff. Usually, their lives outside his house were none of his business. But with her, The line between work and whatever this was had blurred the second he saw her in that dress. Emma blinked quickly, trying to process his words. A lock of hair fell over her face, and she pushed it back behind her ear, her fingers trembling slightly. I just came with a friend," she said, shouting a little now to be heard. "I didn't think anyone from the house would see me." He heard the unspoken part. She did not want to be noticed. He wondered how many nights she had spent in places like this, finally free to be herself, without anyone from his world watching. The idea that she had a life he knew nothing about bothered him more than it should have. "Emma," he said again, testing her name on his tongue in a way he never had before. "You don't have to explain." Their eyes locked. For a moment, despite the music and the bodies and the lights, the air between them felt strangely quiet. He saw the question in her gaze. "Why are you here talking to me?" He did not have a simple answer. He only knew that when he had walked into this club tonight, he had been thinking about numbers, deals, small complications in one of his businesses. Now all of that sat in the back of his mind. In the front, there was only the image of her laughing with her eyes closed, bathed in red light. Her friend tugged lightly on her arm, clearly confused about what was happening. "Emma, what's going on?" the woman shouted near her ear. Emma did not look away from Lorenzo. "I'm talking to my boss," she replied, still in shock. Lorenzo reached out slowly, giving her time to move if she wanted to. His hand came to rest near her elbow, not quite touching yet. "I'll walk you to the side," he said. "It's loud here." He did not know why he felt the need to say more to her. He just knew he wanted to hear her without shouting. He wanted to ask who she was when she was not wearing his uniform and cleaning his floors. He wanted to know why she smiled so freely here and never at the mansion. He stepped forward, ready to guide her toward the quieter edge of the dance floor. His fingers were inches away from her skin when a male voice called out from behind her. "Emma!" She flinched at the sound, her head snapping toward it. A man was pushing through the crowd, waving a hand above his head. He looked around Emma's age, maybe a little older, with a casual shirt and the careless energy of someone who did not know or care who Lorenzo DeLuca was. "I've been looking everywhere for you," the man shouted over the music, grinning. Emma turned away from Lorenzo fully, her body shifting back toward the center of the dance floor as the man reached her side. Lorenzo's hand hovered in the air between them, inches from her elbow, as she slipped just out of his reach. Emma Parker barely slept. She had walked out of the nightclub with her heart pounding so hard she thought the entire room could hear it. She replayed the moment over and over, the red lights, the music, the crowd, and then him, Lorenzo DeLuca, her boss, standing in front of her like she was someone who mattered. She kept asking herself if she had imagined the way he looked at her. The intensity, the focus, the way his eyes softened when he said her name. Nothing about it felt real. By the time dawn crept into the sky, her stomach was in knots. She arrived early at the mansion, stepping through the staff entrance in her simple maid uniform, hair tied back, face clean, shoes quiet against the hallway floor. It was the version of herself she understood, the version that felt safe. But the moment she entered the kitchen, she felt it. The air had changed. She felt watched. Emma blinked twice, trying to shake the feeling. She placed her bag in her locker, tied her apron, and went straight to her morning tasks. She cleaned the counters, started the coffee machine, arranged fresh fruit on a tray. Her hands moved automatically, trained by routine, but her mind was still in the club, still with him. When she reached for a stack of plates on the top shelf, her fingers trembled. She almost dropped them. "Rough morning?" asked Nora, another maid, lightly bumping her hip. Emma forced a smile. "Just tired." Nora shrugged and left the room humming. Emma exhaled slowly, relieved, but the moment she turned back toward the counter, he was there. Lorenzo DeLuca stood in the doorway of the kitchen, wearing a dark shirt with the sleeves pushed up, revealing the strong lines of his forearms. His hair was slightly messy, like he'd run a hand through it many times already. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes, those eyes, landed on her with a weight she felt all the way down to her knees. Emma's breath caught. He had never come into the staff kitchen before, not once in 6 months. "Good morning," he said, his voice low, smooth, too calm for the tension burning in the room. Emma's throat tightened. "Good morning, Mr. DeLuca." He stepped inside, slow and deliberate. She tried to focus on the coffee instead of the heat climbing her neck. "You're here early," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "So are you," he answered. He didn't look away. And she hated how much she felt it. His attention sliding over every detail she tried to hide. Her plain uniform, her tied-back hair, her bare face. There was nowhere to disappear. No flashing lights, no red dress. Only silence. And him. She opened her mouth to apologize for last night. She didn't even know for what. But he raised a hand slightly. "Emma," he said gently, "you don't need to explain last night." Her cheeks warmed. He moved closer to the counter, his steps soft against the tile. She felt every inch he closed. "I didn't mean to surprise you at the club," he said. "I go there sometimes, not often. Last night wasn't planned." Emma nodded, not trusting her voice. Lorenzo looked down at the coffee she'd prepared. "Is that mine?" She blinked. It can be." His lips curved in the faintest smile. "I'll take it." She set the cup in front of him, her hands steady only because she forced them to be. He wrapped his fingers around the mug, but his gaze stayed on her. He didn't speak for a moment. Neither did she. Finally, he tilted his head slightly. "You looked different last night." Her heart lurched. "Different? How?" He took a slow breath, as if choosing his words carefully. "Happy." Emma's chest tightened so fast she almost stepped back. He continued, voice softer now. "Free." She swallowed hard. She didn't know what to say to that. No one had ever noticed her enough to describe her like that, much less him. He looked down for a moment, brushing a thumb over the rim of the cup. When he lifted his gaze again, something in it was heavier, deeper. "I didn't recognize you at first," he admitted. "I saw a woman who caught my attention, and then she turned and—" He stopped. She waited. "You startled me," he finished. Emma let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "Don't apologize," he interrupted, quietly firm. "You didn't do anything wrong." She nodded slowly. For the first time since she started working here, he wasn't treating her like part of the background. His attention settled on her like she was a person with a life outside of the uniform. A person worth noticing. It terrified her, because she didn't know how to handle it. After a moment, he breathed out and looked toward the hallway. "I have a meeting soon. But later." He met her eyes again. "I'd like to speak with you. Privately." Her stomach dropped. "About last night?" She whispered. "About you," he corrected. She felt the world narrow to that single sentence. He placed the mug down slowly, then stepped back. Before leaving the kitchen, he paused at the doorway. "Emma?" "Yes?" His voice lowered just enough to make her chest tighten. "You don't need to hide from me." Then he walked out. Emma pressed a hand to her chest, breathing shallowly as her entire body shook. She barely had time to catch her breath before Nora walked in again. "Are you okay?" Nora asked. "You look like you saw a ghost." Emma steadied herself. "Something like that." The rest of the morning was torture. Every time she walked down a hallway, she feared running into him. Every time she heard footsteps, her pulse jumped. Her tasks weren't complicated. Polish the banister, clean the mirrors, tidy the living room. But her mind wasn't with her hands. She kept seeing him standing in the kitchen doorway, watching her as if she were someone entirely new. By late afternoon, she was wiping down the last of the shelves in the library when she sensed someone behind her. She didn't have to turn to know it was him. "Emma." She slowly faced him. He stood in the doorway again, this time without the unreadable mask he usually wore. His tie was loosened, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar, his hair slightly out of place. He looked human, tired, bare, but still devastatingly composed. "I didn't mean to keep you waiting," he said. Things ran later than expected. It's okay, she said softly. I wasn't going anywhere. He took a few steps inside, stopping a comfortable distance away. Enough to respect her space, close enough to feel his presence. I meant what I said, he began. I'd like to talk, if you're comfortable. Her hands twisted behind her. What do you want to know? She asked. He hesitated. I want to understand why you hide. Emma blinked, startled. He continued. Last night you looked free. This morning you looked afraid I had seen too much. Her throat tightened. She looked down. It's not about you, she whispered. Maybe not, he said gently. But I want to know the truth anyway. Emma swallowed, then forced herself to meet his eyes. The uniform makes me feel invisible, she murmured. And most days. I like that. Lorenzo didn't look away. Invisible from what? She hesitated. From attention. He studied her carefully. You don't need to be invisible here, he said softly. Not from me. A quiet tension filled the room. Warm, slow, impossible to ignore. His voice, his posture, everything about him felt different today. Less distant, less untouchable. She felt her chest rise and fall faster. He took one more step toward her. Emma, he said quietly, I haven't been able to stop thinking about last night. Her breath caught. The music, the lights, the red dress, the smile. She felt heat spread through her cheeks. I didn't know you ever noticed me, she whispered. Lorenzo's voice lowered even more. I didn't, he admitted. Not the way I should have. The confession hit her like a soft shock. He looked at her as if he was finally seeing everything she tried to hide. His gaze dropped briefly to the small curl of hair that had fallen from her ponytail. He lifted his hand, slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently brushed it back behind her ear with his fingertips. Emma's breath trembled. He let his hand fall. We should talk again, he said, stepping back before she lost the ability to think. When? She breathed. Tonight, he said simply. After your shift. Her heart pounded. Okay. He nodded once, a quiet promise. Then he walked out of the library, leaving her pressed against the shelves, dizzy with emotions she had no idea how to control. And for the first time since she entered the mansion, she didn't feel invisible at all. The mansion felt different after dark. Most of the staff had already gone home. The hallways were quieter, the lights softer, the usual movement replaced by a calm that almost felt like another world. Emma Parker stood in the empty kitchen, her hands still slightly damp from washing the last of the dishes. Her shift was over. She could have left. Her bag was already by the back door. Her coat hung on the hook. Her bus schedule sat folded in her pocket. But she stayed, because he had asked her to. Emma wiped her hands on a towel and checked the clock again, even though she already knew the time. 7 minutes past the hour they had agreed on. She did not know if he was late or if she was simply early and nervous. She smoothed the front of her uniform. The fabric felt rough against her palms. She thought of the red sequin dress hanging in the back of her small closet at home. The way it had moved under the club lights. The way he had looked at her in it. Her stomach fluttered. Emma. She turned at the sound of his voice. Lorenzo stood in the doorway, one hand lightly touching the frame. His tie was gone. His shirt sleeves were rolled up to his forearms. The top buttons of his shirt were undone, revealing a hint of his chest. He looked relaxed, but his eyes told a different story. They were focused, sharp, intense. He wasn't just a man walking into his kitchen. He was a man who had come to see her. Thank you for waiting, he said, stepping inside. She swallowed. It's fine. I just finished. He glanced around the kitchen, taking in the empty counters, the stacked dishes, the spotless floor. You always leave it like this? He asked. Yes, she said quietly. It feels wrong to leave a mess overnight. He gave a small nod, almost approving. Then he looked at her again, really looked. Come with me, he said softly. We'll talk in my office. It's quieter there. Her heart jumped. his office. She had never been inside. For a moment, her legs felt rooted to the floor, not because she didn't trust him, but because going to his office made everything feel official, personal, important. "Okay," she said finally. He waited for her at the door and walked beside her through the hallway. His steps were steady. He did not rush. He did not speak. She felt the air shift when they passed the large windows, the reflection of the two of them side by side catching her eye. She had seen him with other people before. Business partners, neighbors, men in suits. He always looked like he belonged in every room more than anyone else. Tonight, for the first time, she wondered if she belonged in his world in any way. They reached the double doors that led to his office. He opened one and gestured for her to enter first. Emma stepped inside. The room was large but not cold. Dark wooden shelves lined two walls, filled with books and files. A wide desk sat near the center, neat and organized. The lights were dimmed just enough to soften the atmosphere, but bright enough to see every detail. It smelled like paper, leather, and his cologne. "Sit," he said gently, pointing to one of the chairs in front of the desk. She sat on the edge, hands clasped in her lap. He came around the desk but didn't sit in his big leather chair. Instead, he leaned against the front of the desk, directly in front of her, close enough to make her heartbeat thump in her ears. For a moment, he just studied her face. "Do you regret last night?" he asked quietly. The question hit her with more force than she expected. She looked down at her hands. "Regret what exactly?" "Dancing there," he said. "Being seen. By me." She took a breath. "I didn't know you were there," she admitted. "But no, I don't regret it." He watched her carefully. "You looked happy." "I was," she said. "For a little while." "And here?" he asked. "Are you ever that happy here?" She hesitated. "I'm comfortable here," she said. "It's work. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know where I fit." "That's not what I asked," he said softly. She looked up at him. "No," she said. "I'm not that happy here." He didn't look surprised. If anything, he looked like he had expected that answer. "Why do you think you have to be two different people?" he asked. "The woman in the red dress and the maid in this uniform." She shifted in her seat, her fingers twisting together. "Because the woman in the red dress doesn't belong in this house," she said. "And the maid doesn't belong on that dance floor." "I disagree," he said at once. Her chest tightened. "You're the same person," he continued. "Here, there, in that dress, in this uniform. You aren't two separate women." "You see it that way," she said quietly. "But people don't treat me the same in both places." He narrowed his eyes slightly. "Explain," he said. Emma took a slow breath and forced herself to say the words she usually kept for herself. "At the mansion, I'm staff," she said. "I'm supposed to be quiet, respectful, invisible. If I draw attention, it's dangerous. Not because of you, but because I don't know who walks through these doors. I don't know what they might do if they think someone like me is worth noticing." Lorenzo's jaw tightened. She saw the small flicker of anger in his eyes. Not at her, but at the world she was describing. "And at the club?" he asked. "At the club, I'm just another girl in a dress," she said. "No one knows where I work. No one cares. They just see me dancing. If someone stares too much, I move. If I feel uncomfortable, I leave." "And last night?" he asked. "Did anyone make you uncomfortable?" She hesitated, then met his eyes. "Yes," she said. "You." His shoulders stiffened, but he did not look away. "In a bad way?" he asked carefully. She shook her head. "No, just in a way I wasn't ready for." He relaxed slightly, but his attention stayed sharp. "I never noticed you before," he admitted. "That bothers me now." She blinked. "Why?" "Because I should have," he said simply. "You work in my home. You move around me every day, and I only truly saw you when you weren't wearing this uniform." He spoke like it was a failure. Her heart ached a little at that. "It's not your fault," she said softly. I wanted to be invisible here. I dressed like this on purpose. I never wanted anyone to pay attention. Why? He pressed. She sighed. Because attention is dangerous, she said. I've seen what it does. People look at you, then they think they have the right to comment, or touch, or control. Hiding is easier. His eyes darkened, a shadow crossing his face. Has anyone here ever? No, she cut in quickly. No one here has touched me or said anything wrong. Your men keep their distance. Everyone respects the rules. That's why I stayed. That's why I feel safe, most of the time. Most? He repeated. She looked away, her gaze drifting to the window. I don't feel safe when I'm seen, she admitted. Not fully, not like last night. He followed her gaze, then looked back at her. Did you feel unsafe with me there? He asked. She shook her head slowly. No, she said. Just exposed. A quiet silence settled between them. It wasn't empty. It was thick with everything they weren't saying yet. Lorenzo shifted his weight slightly, crossing his arms over his chest as he watched her. I am not a good man, Emma, he said, voice even. I'm not going to pretend I am. I've done things to protect my family and my business that I'm not proud of. She did not flinch. She had always known who he was, even if she didn't know details. But I'm not blind, he continued. And I'm not careless with the people who work under my roof. He held her gaze, steady and intense. Last night, he said, when I saw you on that dance floor, I wasn't thinking about business, or power, or enemies. I saw you smiling, and it changed something for me. Her breath caught. He didn't rush his next words. I couldn't stop watching you, he said. I didn't want to. Emma felt warmth spread through her chest and fear tangle with it. She had no idea what to do with the image of him, a mafia boss, standing in his own club, unable to look away from a maid. Mr. DeLuca. Lorenzo, he interrupted. She paused. What? She asked. Call me Lorenzo, he said quietly. At least when we're alone. Her heart skipped a beat. I don't think that's appropriate, she whispered. We're not in front of my men, he said. We're not at a formal dinner. Right now, we're just two people in a room, having a conversation. You can say my name, Emma. It won't break anything. She stared at him, the weight of his words pressing against her chest. Lorenzo, she said finally, the name soft and uncertain on her tongue. His eyes darkened slightly, a barely visible reaction. He liked the way she said it. She could tell. He stepped away from the desk and moved to stand closer to her chair, not looming, but near enough that she could feel the warmth from his body. He lowered his voice. Do you know what I thought when I realized it was you? He asked. She shook her head. I thought, he said slowly, how many things have I missed right in front of me? She swallowed hard. I'm not anything special, she murmured, fighting the rising emotion. That's not true, he said at once. You are, I know it, even if you don't. Her eyes burned. He continued, softer now. You work hard. You never complain. You're careful. You treat this house like it matters. You move like you're always afraid of taking up too much space. And then I saw you last night, taking all the space you wanted, dancing like the world couldn't touch you. He paused, eyes searching hers. I liked that woman, he said. Very much. She exhaled shakily. I liked her too, she admitted. I just don't know how to be her all the time. You don't have to be, he said. You only have to stop hiding when you don't want to. His hand moved again, slow and respectful. This time, when he reached for her, he didn't touch her hair. He let his fingers brush lightly against her wrist just once before pulling back. The contact was brief, but it sent a shiver up her arm. Emma, he said quietly, I don't want you to feel invisible here anymore. Not to me. Her chest lifted with a deep breath she hadn't meant to take. What does that mean? She asked, voice shaking. It means I'm going to notice you, he said. I already do, and I'm not going to pretend I don't. Her heart pounded so hard she thought he could hear it. Aren't there rules about this? She whispered. About bosses and staff? Yes, he said honestly. There are, and I'm not planning to cross any lines you don't want crossed. His eyes held a clear promise. I won't touch you without your consent, he said. I won't use my position to push you into anything. If you ever feel uncomfortable, you tell me, and it stops. Do you understand? Her throat tightened with sudden emotion. Why are you saying all this? She asked. Because I care what happens to you, he answered simply, and because I know my world is not easy. I want you to hear it from me first. Whatever this is, whatever it becomes, you will have a choice. Always. Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. No one had ever put that kind of promise into words for her before. She nodded slowly. Okay, she whispered. He watched her for another long moment, then stepped back again, giving her space to breathe. I have to handle something tonight, he said. Some business I can't ignore, but I wanted to talk to you before it pulls me away. Worry flickered in her eyes. Is it dangerous? She asked. He hesitated, then gave a slight shrug. It comes with the life, he said, but nothing you need to worry about. She didn't look convinced. He noticed. I won't bring it into this house, he added. Not if I can help it, especially not near you. Her chest ached at the quiet care in his voice. Lorenzo, she said softly, surprising herself with how natural his name felt now. I know what you are. I knew before I took this job. I'm not stupid. He didn't flinch. Then why did you come here? He asked. Because this place has rules, she said. Your rules, and everyone follows them. That felt safer than the chaos outside. He tilted his head, studying her. Safer with a mafia boss? He asked. In some ways, she said. At least I know who's in charge. A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. You surprise me, he admitted. She shrugged lightly. Most people don't give me the chance. He looked at her for another long moment, then nodded. We'll continue this, he said gently. I want to know more. About you. About your life before this. But for tonight, I have to go. She stood too, aware of how close they were now. He walked her to the office door. Before she stepped out, he stopped and turned to face her one more time. Emma? Yes? His eyes softened. If anyone ever makes you feel unsafe, he said, inside this house or outside it, you come to me, directly. No matter what time it is, no matter who it is. She swallowed. I don't want to cause trouble, she murmured. You won't be causing trouble, he said. You'll be letting me do my job. She nodded. Okay, she said again. He opened the door for her. She stepped out into the hallway, the air suddenly cooler on her skin. Get home safe, he added. You too, she said, then caught herself. I mean, he smiled, just a little. I know what you mean, he said. Good night, Emma. Good night, Lorenzo. The way she said his name stayed with him long after she left. Emma walked home with her mind spinning. The night air brushed against her cheeks, cool and sharp. The city around her moved at its usual pace. Cars, distant sirens, people talking on phones, but none of it fully reached her. His words repeated in her head. I'm going to notice you. You won't be invisible to me. She pressed her lips together, trying not to smile too much in public. It felt strange to admit how good it felt. How warm, how frightening. Because the more he noticed her, the more she risked losing the safe distance she had built. When she reached her small apartment, she went straight to the bedroom and opened the closet. The red sequin dress hung exactly where she had left it. She ran her fingers along the fabric. He had seen her in this, and he had liked what he saw. She set the hanger back carefully and closed the door, her heart full and anxious at the same time. What she didn't know was that, across the city, in a private back room of one of his businesses, Lorenzo De Luca was listening to one of his men report something that made his expression harden. Someone's been asking about your staff, the man said. Not many questions, just a few, about the maids. Lorenzo's jaw clenched. Which one? He asked. The man hesitated. Emma Parker, he answered. Lorenzo's pulse sharpened. He leaned forward, his earlier warmth replaced by a focused intensity. "Find out who," he said, "and why." He thought of Emma, standing in his office, telling him she felt safer here than anywhere else. His voice turned firm, final. "No one touches her," he said. "No one scares her. If they try, they go through me first." He didn't know yet who was asking. He only knew one thing with absolute certainty. His obsession with the woman who had once been invisible was quickly turning into something much stronger. And if anyone threatened her, his world, dangerous or not, was going to move around her, not the other way around. The next morning, Emma woke with a strange heaviness in her chest, an ache she couldn't explain. Sleep hadn't helped. If anything, it made everything sharper. The memory of Lorenzo's voice in his office lingered in her mind. "If anyone ever makes you feel unsafe, you come to me." She'd never had someone say that to her before. Not someone who meant it. Not someone like him. But the warmth of that promise carried a shadow she couldn't quite name. She arrived at the mansion early again, partly out of habit, partly to avoid running into anyone before she was ready. She walked through the staff hallway, tying her apron, steadying her breath. The minute she entered the kitchen, she sensed tension. Not the normal kind, the kind that came before late-night meetings or complicated business. This was sharper, focused, quiet, like the whole house was holding its breath. Emma set her bag down and began preparing the morning setup, but she noticed something new. 2 additional guards stood near the back windows. Men she didn't recognize. Men who scanned the room like someone might burst in at any second. Nora entered a few minutes later, brushing flour off her hands. "Did you notice the new guys?" she whispered. Emma pretended to stay calm. "Maybe something's going on with the business." Nora shrugged. "As long as we're not in the way." Emma nodded, but her stomach tightened. She knew something had happened last night, something connected to her. She could feel it. She tried to distract herself by focusing on work, polishing the silverware, refilling sugar bowls, organizing the pantry. But she kept glancing at the door, waiting for the moment she would feel him before she saw him. And she did. Lorenzo walked in just as she finished arranging the breakfast tray. He wore a suit, perfectly fitted, but there was something rough around the edges that hadn't been there the day before. His hair was slightly mussed, his expression sharper. But the moment his eyes found Emma, everything in his face softened. "Good morning," he said, his voice calm, controlled. But behind it, she sensed a tension he wasn't showing anyone else. "Good morning, Mr. De—" She stopped herself. "Lorenzo." His eyes warmed. He stepped inside, dismissing the guards with a subtle tilt of his head. They left instantly, closing the door behind them. Emma set the tray down on the counter. "Is everything okay?" she asked quietly. He took a breath. "For me?" "Yes," he said. "For the house?" "Also yes." Then, after a pause, "For you? We need to talk." Her fingers tightened around the edge of the counter. "Is something wrong?" "No," he reassured, stepping closer. "Nothing is happening to you. Nothing will happen to you." His voice lowered. "I'm just being cautious." Her heart raced. Cautious about what? He hesitated. Not because he wanted to hide something, but because he hated the idea of worrying her. She could tell. "Someone was asking questions about the staff," he said carefully. "Not many questions, but enough." Emma froze. "And they asked about you specifically." The breath left her lungs in a thin, shaky exhale. She didn't move. Didn't blink. For a moment, she forgot how to breathe at all. Lorenzo stepped closer, his voice softening. "Look at me." She lifted her eyes to his. "You are safe," he said firmly. "I will not allow anything to happen to you." Her throat tightened. "Why would anyone ask about me?" He watched her carefully. "Do you know anyone who would try to find you?" A tremor moved through her at the question. "Emma," he said, voice gentle now. "You can tell me." She swallowed and shook her head. "No, not anymore." He studied her for a long moment, clearly realizing there was more she wasn't saying. But he didn't push, not yet. Instead, he stepped back slightly, giving her space. "This isn't about you doing anything wrong," he said. "It's about someone thinking they can reach into my house, and they can't." She closed her eyes briefly, relief and fear mixing in her chest. "Lorenzo, I don't want anyone getting hurt because of me." He lifted her chin lightly with 2 fingers, making her meet his gaze. The touch was soft, barely there, but it stole her breath anyway. "You are not a problem," he said. "You are not a burden, and you don't get to decide whose actions I handle. That's my job." Her heart thumped painfully at the tenderness in his tone. A moment passed, one so full of unspoken emotion it felt like a fragile secret between them. Then he let his hand fall. "Finish your tasks for now," he said. "We'll talk later." She nodded, but her hands trembled as she returned to work. The day passed with small waves of tension she couldn't shake. Guards changed positions more often. Even the way people spoke seemed quieter. Emma tried to focus on polishing glassware and folding linens, but her thoughts kept circling back to the questions she didn't want to answer. Did someone really come looking for her? Or was her past finally catching up? Late that afternoon, she brought fresh linens to Lorenzo's bedroom. She knocked lightly, entered, and placed the folded stack on the dresser. She turned to leave, and froze. Lorenzo was standing on the balcony, phone pressed to his ear. His voice was low, controlled, edged with a coldness she had never heard directed at anyone except business rivals. "No," he said sharply. "No one gets close to this house. I don't care who they are. Handle it quietly." Emma's chest tightened. "Handle it quietly." She stepped back instinctively, not wanting to overhear more, but his voice reached her again. "I want names, and I want them before midnight." He ended the call and exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. When he turned and saw her, his expression changed instantly. Gone was the cold edge. In its place was warmth, concern, something deeper. "Emma," he said softly, "I didn't hear you come in." She swallowed. "I didn't want to interrupt." "You didn't." He approached her slowly. "Are you all right?" No, she wasn't. But she nodded anyway. "I'm just processing." He reached out and gently took the folded edge of the linen towel she was holding, easing it from her grip so her hands could rest at her sides. "You don't have to be afraid," he murmured. "Not here." "Someone was asking about me," she whispered. "I can't pretend that doesn't scare me." His jaw tightened. "I know." She hesitated. "Is it dangerous?" "Not if I can help it," he said. "And trust me, I can." Her heart squeezed at the certainty in his voice. She stepped closer, almost without meaning to. "Is this because of your world? Or mine?" The question surprised even him. After a long moment, he answered honestly, "That's what I'm trying to find out." The honesty made her breathe easier. He took a slow step toward her, closing the space between them until his presence wrapped around her like invisible heat. "I won't let anything happen to you," he repeated softly. "I know," she whispered, because she believed him more than she believed herself. He lifted a hand, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear, letting his fingers linger just a second too long. Her breath shook. "Come to my office tonight," he said quietly. "We'll talk more when the house is calm." She nodded. But Lorenzo wasn't finished. His voice dropped, warm and low. "And Emma?" She looked up at him. "You don't have to walk through any of this alone." A soft, unsteady smile touched her lips. "Okay." He stepped back slowly, letting her go. Not because he wanted to, but because he respected the moment too much to rush it. She left the room, her pulse fluttering wildly. That evening, as she was finishing her final task in the hallway, she felt someone slip something under the supply closet door. A small shadow, a movement too discreet to be accidental. Emma froze. Her heartbeat thudded painfully as she knelt and picked up the folded scrap of paper. She unfolded it slowly and felt her blood run cold. People close to Lorenzo never stay safe. Her fingers shook around the note. This time it wasn't a threat. It was a warning, or a promise. She didn't know which was worse. Her vision blurred for a moment as she swallowed back a mix of fear and disbelief. She wasn't paranoid, not anymore. Someone really was watching. Someone really was trying to scare her, and whoever it was, they were getting bolder. She clutched the note to her chest, her breath trembling. One thing was clear, she had to tell Lorenzo. But the closer she got to his office door, the more her hands shook, because this time, the danger wasn't abstract. It had come straight to her, and it wasn't going away on its own. Emma stood outside Lorenzo's office door for nearly a full minute before she knocked. Her heart hadn't slowed since she found the note. Her palms were still damp, her fingers shaking. The hallway felt colder than usual, every shadow longer, every sound sharper. She kept imagining footsteps behind her, even though she knew she was alone. She knocked softly once, then again a little louder. "Come in." His voice was steady, warm, familiar. But the moment she stepped inside and closed the door behind her, the illusion of calm shattered. Her breath trembled. Her hand clutched the note like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Lorenzo looked up from his desk. The second he saw her face, he stood. "Emma?" He moved toward her, concern slicing through his voice. "What happened?" She didn't try to hide the fear. She couldn't. She held the note out with a shaky hand. "Someone put this under the closet door," she whispered. He took the small paper, unfolding it carefully, though his jaw clenched at the first word. He read it once, then a second time. A storm gathered behind his eyes. He folded the note with slow, deliberate precision, too slow for the fury she saw building in him. He looked back at her, voice low and tight. "Who gave this to you?" "I don't know," she whispered. "I only saw a shadow. Someone slipped it under the door." He closed the distance between them in 2 steps. "Emma." His voice softened instantly, his anger switching directions. "You're shaking." She didn't mean to break, but the moment he said it, her breath hitched. She had held herself together all day. She had stayed silent about the guards, the tension, the questions. But this made everything real. Lorenzo reached out slowly, giving her time to move away. She didn't. He rested a hand on her arm, warm and steady. "Sit," he said gently. She didn't want to sit. She wanted answers. She wanted to know who had slipped that note under the door and why. But her knees trembled so badly she couldn't argue. He guided her to the chair in front of his desk, then crouched in front of her, eye level. "Tell me everything," he said quietly. "Every detail." She swallowed. I was finishing up. And then someone put the note under the door. I don't know if they were watching me or if it was random or if... "It wasn't random," he said firmly. "Don't ever think that." Her chest tightened. "Is this about the staff questions? Is it the same person?" "Possibly," he answered. But she could hear in his tone he already believed it was the same person. Emma's fingers twisted together. She tried to speak, but the words tumbled out uneven. "Lorenzo, I didn't want this. I didn't come here to bring trouble. I didn't want your world overlapping with my life." He reached for her hands gently, stopping her restless movements. "You didn't cause this," he said. "Whoever is behind this." They crossed a line. My line, not yours. She blinked hard, tears forming. "But why me?" she whispered. He squeezed her hands lightly, grounding her. "That," he said, "is what I intend to find out." He stood, moving behind his desk, his expression shifting into something cold and controlled. Emma watched with a sinking feeling. He wasn't just Lorenzo now. He was the Mafia boss. He made a quick phone call, voice low and dangerous. "I need the cameras checked, all of them, every hallway, every entrance, no exceptions." A pause. "Anyone who went near the staff wing in the last 3 hours, send me the footage." Another pause. "And double the guards tonight. No one gets near the house unless they want a problem." He hung up and leaned both hands on the desk, breathing slowly but deeply. Emma had seen him serious before, but this was different. This was personal. When he finally looked back at her, his eyes softened again, but his posture stayed strong, the quiet, steady certainty that had become familiar. "Emma," he said quietly, "there's something I need you to tell me." She swallowed. "What?" "Yesterday," he continued, "I asked if anyone from your past would try to find you." He stepped closer. "You hesitated." Her breath caught. She had hoped he'd forgotten, or dismissed it, but he hadn't missed a thing. "Emma," he said softly, "I need the truth." Her shoulders fell. "I didn't lie," she whispered. "I really didn't. I just didn't tell you everything." He stayed silent, giving her the safety to continue. Emma looked down at her hands. "There's someone," she said finally. "Someone who used to be in my life. Someone who didn't treat me well." Lorenzo's jaw tightened again. She forced herself to keep going. "It wasn't physical," she said quickly. "Nothing like that. But he pushed. He tried to control everything. What I wore, who I spoke to, where I went. He said I was too pretty to be trusted on my own, that people would take advantage of me, and I believed him for a long time." Lorenzo moved closer, his expression dark with anger, but not at her. "He made you hide," he said quietly. "Yes," she breathed. "He made sure I never felt safe unless I was invisible. When I finally ended things, it got messy. He left me alone. Eventually. But he said he'd always know where to find me." "And you think this might be him?" Lorenzo asked. Her voice cracked. "I don't know." He crouched in front of her again, sliding one hand gently under her chin to lift her face. "Look at me," he whispered. She did. "You are not alone anymore," he said. "And you are not invisible, not to me, not now, not ever again." A shaky tear slipped down her cheek. He brushed it away with his thumb, slow and gentle. "I should have told you sooner," she said guiltily. "I didn't want to drag my past into your world." "You didn't drag anything," he replied. "Your past followed you, and now it has to answer to me." Her breath trembled at the quiet promise in his voice. He stood again, pacing for a moment before stopping in front of her. "I'll handle everything," he said, "but I need you to do one thing." She nodded quickly. "Anything. Stay close to the house," he said. "Don't walk home alone. Don't go anywhere after your shift without one of my men." She opened her mouth to argue, and he shook his head. "This isn't up for debate," he said softly, but firmly. "I know you're used to doing things alone, but not now. Not with this happening." She tightened her fingers around the arms of the chair. "What about work, my shifts, my responsibilities?" "You'll keep your routine," he said, "but with protection." She breathed out slowly. "Okay." Only then did his posture ease a little. He sat on the edge of his desk, inches from her, his knees brushing hers lightly. "You should have never had to hide," he murmured. "And whoever made you feel that way will regret it." She pressed her lips together, fighting the emotion rising in her throat. "Lorenzo," she whispered, "I'm scared." He reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "You're allowed to be scared," he said gently. "But I won't let anything happen to you. I swear it." Her chest tightened at the way he said it, like a vow, not a reassurance. She held his hand a little tighter. "How did you know something was off?" she asked after a moment. He exhaled. "Your face the moment I walked into the kitchen told me you were expecting something to go wrong." She blinked. "You noticed that?" His eyes softened. "I notice everything about you now." Her heart flickered, warm and terrified at the same time. A knock came at the door, and Lorenzo's protective expression snapped back instantly. He didn't open it until he knew who it was. Mark Hayes stepped inside, only after Lorenzo gave the signal. "We checked the hallway downstairs," Mark said. "We found a camera angle that caught someone moving near the supply closet." "Show me," Lorenzo ordered. Mark nodded and left, closing the door. Lorenzo turned back to her. "Tonight," he said gently, "you sleep here." Emma's breath caught. "Here?" "In the staff wing," he clarified softly. "In the guest room next to the head housekeeper. You won't be alone, and my men will take shifts." Emma nodded slowly, because deep down she trusted him, with more than she knew how to admit. He walked back to her, brushing his fingers over her knuckles again. "We'll fix this," he said, "but I need you safe first." She nodded again, unable to look away from him. "Tomorrow," he whispered, "we'll talk about everything else." Her voice broke slightly. "Everything?" "Everything," he promised. He stood then, opening the office door for her. She rose on unsteady legs, but before stepping out, she looked up at him, unsure, vulnerable, hopeful. He lifted his hand and gently brushed her cheek with the back of his fingers. "Go rest," he said. "I'm not losing you." Her breath caught at the quiet intensity in his voice. She nodded and stepped out into the hallway. Lorenzo watched her go, his eyes shadowed with something deeper than anger, something dangerous, something personal. Then he closed the door, pulled out his phone, and said 4 cold words that carried the weight of a man's entire empire. "Find him. Bring me names." Because whoever had tried to scare Emma Parker had made the worst mistake possible. They had caught the attention of Lorenzo DeLuca. Emma didn't sleep much that night, even in the staff wing where Lorenzo insisted she stay. The guest room was clean and quiet, but her mind refused to settle. Every shadow felt heavier than it should, every sound too sharp. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the warning note echoing inside her head. Yet under all of that fear was something else. Lorenzo's voice. "You are not alone anymore. I notice everything about you now. I'm not losing you." No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever looked at her the way he had in his office, as if her safety mattered more than anything else happening in his powerful world. By morning she was exhausted, but she forced herself up. She tied her hair back, put on her uniform, and tried to pretend everything was normal. But the moment she left the staff wing, 2 guards, his guards, fell into step behind her, discreet but unmistakable. Her breath caught. This was real. Lorenzo wasn't taking chances. She headed to the kitchen, trying to keep her hands steady as she prepared the breakfast setup. But she could feel the tension in the house the way one feels a storm in the air before the clouds break. The guards, the silence, the whispers among staff who didn't know what was happening. Then she felt him. Before she saw him, before she heard him, she felt him. Lorenzo entered the kitchen wearing a dark suit, collar open, hair slightly out of place as if he'd run his hands through it several times already. There were faint shadows under his eyes, but his presence was still powerful, centered, unshakable. The guard stepped aside instantly, giving him a clear path. His voice softened the moment he saw her. "Morning." Emma's fingers froze around the coffee pot. "Morning." He walked closer, every step controlled and quiet. When he reached her, he lowered his voice so only she could hear. "Did you sleep?" "A little," she admitted. His eyes searched hers. "You should have slept more." Her chest tightened. "Did you?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached out and took the coffee pot gently from her hand. "You're trembling." She swallowed. "I'm trying not to." "I know." He set the pot down and placed a steadying hand on her arm. "Come with me." She hesitated. "Now?" "Yes, now." He didn't take her to his office this time. He led her outside to the mansion's side garden. Morning sunlight filtered through the trees, soft and warm. The air smelled of damp grass and jasmine. Here, the world felt quieter, safer. Lorenzo stopped beneath a stone archway covered in vines, then turned to face her fully. "Emma," he said, "I have answers." Her breath caught. "About last night?" He nodded once. A quiet, controlled motion. "We know who slipped the note under the door." Her stomach dropped. "Who?" "Someone tied to an old associate," he said. "Someone who didn't understand the rules. But that part is handled." She stared at him, searching his face for what handled meant. He must have read her worry because he added softly, "Handled doesn't mean violence. It means removed. Far away from you. Far away from this house." She exhaled shakily. "But that's not the only thing," he continued. There's more. Her chest tightened again. More. What? He stepped closer, not intimidating, not forceful, just present. Emma, he said quietly, your past didn't just find you by accident. Her pulse stuttered. What do you mean? She whispered. His eyes softened. Not pity, understanding. The man you told me about, he said carefully. The one who controlled you. The one who made you hide. She felt her throat close. You remember how he used to say he'd always know where you went? Lorenzo continued gently. Yes, she whispered. Well, Lorenzo said, he tried. Her legs nearly gave out. What? He asked questions in the wrong neighborhood, Lorenzo said. Questions about a woman who suddenly changed jobs. Questions about a maid who didn't want to be found. Emma felt the ground tilt beneath her. So it is him, she breathed. Lorenzo reached out, placing his hands on her shoulders gently but firmly. Emma, he said, voice low and steady, he is not getting anywhere near you. Her chest shook with uneven breaths, fear, shock, relief, all tangled together. Why? She whispered, tears welling. Why would he come looking, after all this time? Control doesn't fade easily for men like him, Lorenzo said darkly. But he doesn't get to control you anymore. She closed her eyes, letting his words sink in. I didn't want any of this to touch your world, she whispered. I never wanted to bring danger to your doorstep. You didn't bring danger, he said firmly. Danger tried to walk into my world without permission. She blinked up at him. And nothing touches what's mine without consequences. Her breath hitched. Not mine as property, mine as protected, mine as valued. He saw the fear in her eyes soften into something else, something warmer, and his expression changed too. Less boss, more man. He lifted a hand and cupped the side of her face gently. His thumb brushed her cheek in the softest stroke, grounding her. You're safe, he murmured, with me. Emma leaned subtly into his touch, unable to stop herself. She had never trusted anyone like this, not fully, not openly, until now. Lorenzo, she whispered. His eyes lowered to her lips for a fraction of a second before returning to her gaze. You don't have to hide anymore, he said softly. Not from your past, not from me, not from yourself. Her breath trembled. He stepped closer, his forehead almost touching hers. His hand slid to the back of her neck in a warm, steady hold, not demanding, but comforting. She felt his breath against her lips, warm, slow, meant for her. But he didn't kiss her, not yet. He wanted her to choose it, to step toward him. Emma, he whispered, I need you to hear something, and I need you to believe it. She nodded, voice caught in her throat. What is it? You are not a scared woman hiding in someone else's shadow, he said. You are not defined by what he did to you. He leaned in just a little more. And you don't belong to your past. You belong to your future. Her heart squeezed painfully. A tear escaped and he brushed it away before it could fall. I'm trying, she whispered. I know, he said gently, and I'm not going anywhere. This time she moved first. She placed her hands on his chest, lightly at first, then with more trust, and stepped into him. His breath caught softly. His arms slid around her waist in a slow, protective embrace, drawing her close enough to feel the steady rhythm of his heart. Her cheek rested against his chest. She felt safe in a way she didn't know she could feel. He lowered his chin slightly, brushing the top of her head. I've got you, he murmured. Whatever happens next, you're not facing it alone. She closed her eyes, breathing him in. Warmth, strength, safety, everything her past never gave her. After a moment, she pulled back slightly, looking up into his eyes. His hand cupped her jaw softly, his thumb brushing her lower lip. Lorenzo, she whispered, her voice trembling for a different reason now. He leaned in. But just before their lips touched, a voice called from across the garden. Boss? Lorenzo stiffened, jaw tightening. Emma stepped back slightly, cheeks flushed. Anthony stood at a distance, trying very hard to pretend he hadn't interrupted something. "There's something you need to see," he said. "It's about the man asking questions." Lorenzo's expression shifted instantly, from tender to lethal. He turned back to Emma, his voice soft again. "Stay inside," he said. "I'll be back soon." She nodded, heart pounding. He took one step away, then paused, turned back, and brushed the back of his fingers down her cheek with a tenderness that made her knees weaken. "I'm not finished with what we started," he murmured. Her breath caught. She nodded again, unable to speak. Lorenzo walked away with Anthony, posture tight, voice low. Emma watched him go, her heart full and terrified at the same time. Because now she knew something with painful clarity. Her past wasn't the only thing changing. Her feelings for Lorenzo were too, and there was no going back. Emma waited in the mansion's living room, her fingers laced tightly together. The hours stretched long after Lorenzo disappeared into his private meeting with Anthony. She tried to read. She tried to clean. She tried to distract herself with small tasks. Nothing worked. Her thoughts replayed everything that had happened in the garden. The warning note, the truth about her past resurfacing, the way Lorenzo held her like she wasn't a burden, but someone he wasn't willing to let go of. Every second he was gone carried a weight she didn't want to admit out loud. When the sun finally dipped behind the city skyline, painting the windows with gold and purple, heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway. Only one person in this house walked like that. Lorenzo. Emma stood instantly, brushing her palms on her uniform. She didn't have time to calm her breath before he entered the room. He closed the door behind him, and the moment he looked at her, the tension she'd held all day melted into something warm and overwhelming. "Emma," he said softly. Her chest tightened. "Are you okay?" "I am," he said. "Everything is handled." She exhaled shakily, relief washing over her so quickly her knees almost gave out. "Handled how?" "He's not here anymore," Lorenzo said. "Not in this city, not anywhere near it. He won't come close to you again." She swallowed. "You're sure?" "I am," he said quietly. "I made sure." She believed him, not because of his reputation, because of the certainty in his voice. He walked closer, the room growing smaller with every step. "I know you're tired," he said gently, "and you've had a long day. But there's something I want to show you, something I want to say." She met his gaze. "Now?" "Now," he said. "If you're ready." She nodded slowly, her heartbeat quickening. "Where are we going?" He hesitated for a moment before answering. "The club," he said softly. "Where I first truly saw you." A soft warmth bloomed in her chest. "The red dress?" she whispered. "Only if you want to wear it," he said. "You don't have to." Her lips parted softly. "I want to." He smiled, small but real. "Then go change. I'll be waiting downstairs." Emma's small apartment felt different that night. She opened her closet slowly, her fingers brushing along the familiar fabric of the red sequin dress. It shimmered even under the dim light of her bedroom, reflecting flashes of gold and rose. She held it against her body and closed her eyes. She wasn't hiding. Not tonight. She stepped into the dress, letting the cool fabric slide along her skin. She curled her hair loosely around her shoulders, added light makeup, and slipped on the same heels she wore the night Lorenzo had seen her for the first time. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. Not because she looked different, but because she finally felt like she had permission to be herself. More than that, she wanted to be seen. Lorenzo waited by his black car outside the mansion, leaning against the hood with his arms crossed. The night air carried a soft breeze, but the moment he saw Emma step outside, he forgot how to breathe. The red dress fit her perfectly. The sequins glimmered with every movement. Her hair cascaded around her shoulders in soft waves. Her lips held a quiet confidence he had never seen before. She walked toward him, each step soft and certain. He pushed off the car, meeting her halfway. "Emma," he breathed, his voice rougher than he intended. She lowered her gaze shyly. Is it too much? It's perfect, he said. You're perfect. Her cheeks warmed. He opened the car door for her, then circled to the driver's seat. They drove in comfortable silence, the city lights casting soft reflections on her skin. Every so often he glanced her way, unable to help himself. You're staring, she whispered, not looking at him. You noticed, he said gently. How could I not? He smiled, turning back to the road. When they arrived at the club, the lights were softer, dimmer. Lorenzo had closed off the back section for privacy. Music played at a low volume, enough to feel it, but not drown anything out. Emma stepped onto the dance floor, déjà vu washing over her like warm air. It was here, right here, where everything began. The memory stung and soothed at the same time. Lorenzo walked in front of her, stopping only when he was close enough for their breath to mingle. This time, he said softly, I want to see you like this without 10,000 people around us. She laughed lightly. So I can't hide. Not from me, he murmured. Never from me. Her heart raced. He reached out his hand. Dance with me. Emma hesitated only for one heartbeat, only long enough to feel how much she wanted this. Then she slid her hand into his. His fingers curled around hers, warm and steady, pulling her close. Their bodies found a slow, natural rhythm. His hand rested on her waist, gently at first, then with more confidence as she relaxed into him. Her eyes closed, just like the first night, but this time, when she opened them, he was still there. Lorenzo watched her, every emotion clear in his eyes. Admiration, desire, softness, something deeper. You look happier tonight, he said quietly. I am, she whispered. Why? She lifted her gaze, her voice barely a breath. Because I'm not alone anymore. His expression softened with a tenderness she didn't expect from a man like him. You're safe with me, he said. Not because you need protection, but because you deserve someone who sees you. He slid one hand up her back, fingers tracing lightly along her spine. And I see you, Emma, he whispered. Every part you tried to hide. Her breath caught. He leaned closer, his forehead brushing hers. I don't want to pretend I don't have feelings for you, he said. I can't. Emma's pulse thudded. Lorenzo, I know my world is complicated, he continued softly. But when I look at you, it feels simple. Her lips parted in a small, trembling smile. I feel it too, she whispered. His eyes softened even more. Then let me show you. Slowly, gently, he cupped her face with both hands. She lifted her chin, her breath catching in her throat. And then, finally, his lips touched hers. The kiss was slow, warm, and impossibly soft. Not rushed, not demanding. A question, a promise, a beginning. Emma melted, her hand sliding up his chest, over his shoulders, pulling him closer. He deepened the kiss just a little, his breath mixing with hers, his hands framing her face like she was something precious. When they pulled apart, she saw something in him she had never seen before. Peace. I've wanted to do that since the moment I saw you in this dress, he whispered. She laughed, breathless. You barely recognized me. I recognize you now, he murmured, brushing a soft kiss to her forehead. They stayed like that for a long moment, his arms around her, her face tucked against his chest, the music surrounding them like a blanket. Finally, he spoke again. I want you in my life, he said quietly. Not as staff, not as someone hiding in my hallways, as someone I care about, someone I choose. Her heart swelled, warm and full. And I choose you, she whispered. He inhaled sharply, holding her tighter. Stay with me, he said. Not just tonight. Stay in my life. Emma closed her eyes, her smile soft and certain. Okay, she said. I want that. Lorenzo pulled back just enough to look at her, his thumb brushing her cheek. The music swelled, the lights glowed around them, and the world outside the club faded away. Emma did not hide. She did not shrink. She did not disappear. She stood in the red dress, fully herself, fully seen, and fully loved. Lorenzo kissed her again, deeper this time, and whispered against her lips, "You're not invisible anymore." She smiled, her heart finally unburdened. "I never will be again." And in his arms, for the first time in her life, she believed it. The mansion felt different now, not because the furniture had changed, or the lighting, or the long marble hallways, but because Emma no longer walked through it with her head down. 2 weeks had passed since that night in the club. 2 weeks since Lorenzo kissed her like he had been waiting his whole life to do it. 2 weeks since she finally let herself believe she deserved to be seen. Now, she woke up every morning in the same soft bed, sunlight warming the sheets, her hair spread across Lorenzo's pillow because somehow he always pulled her closer in his sleep. Some mornings she woke before him. Today was one of those mornings. She opened her eyes and found him lying beside her, arm draped across her waist, chest rising and falling slowly. Without the suit, the tension, the responsibility, he looked younger, softer, like the quiet truth of him was something only she had ever been allowed to see. Emma shifted slightly and Lorenzo's fingers tightened gently at her hip. "You're awake," he murmured, voice still thick with sleep. "I didn't want to wake you," she whispered. "You didn't." He opened his eyes, warm and slow. "I just don't like when you move away." Her face warmed. "I wasn't going anywhere." "Good," he murmured, brushing his lips along her jaw. A soft, lazy kiss that made her heartbeat flutter. He stretched, then sat up behind her, pulling her back against his chest. She relaxed into him easily now, her head resting beneath his chin. For a long moment they stayed like that, breathing the same quiet morning air. "Do you have work today?" he asked, voice rumbling against her back. "No," she said. "Not in the house." "Good," he said again, wrapping both arms around her. "You're not working here anymore." She smiled gently. "You already told me that. And I'll keep saying it," he replied, pressing a kiss to her shoulder. "Not because I didn't appreciate you as a maid, but because you were never meant to hide behind that uniform." She turned in his arms, touching his cheek softly. It still surprised her sometimes, to be able to touch him freely, to have him look at her like she was the only woman in the world. "What if I miss helping around the house?" she teased. He laughed under his breath. "You can help if you want. I just don't want you disappearing into the walls again." She leaned in, kissing him lightly. "I'm not disappearing." "No," he whispered, pulling her closer. "You're not." He rested his forehead against hers. "I like seeing you like this," he said softly, comfortable, confident. "Here with me." She closed her eyes. "It feels good, being seen." He cupped her face gently, lifting it to meet his gaze. "I'll spend the rest of my life making sure of it." Her breath caught. She wasn't used to promises. She wasn't used to men who meant what they said. She wasn't used to softness with no price attached. But with him, it felt natural. "Can I show you something?" he asked suddenly. She raised a brow. "What?" He slipped out of bed and grabbed something from the dresser. A small velvet box, not jewelry, not yet, but something equally thoughtful. "Open it," he said. Inside was a delicate gold necklace. Nothing flashy, nothing heavy. A single tiny red crystal sat at the center. She touched it gently. "It's beautiful." "It reminded me of your dress," he said quietly, "the night everything changed." Her chest tightened in the warmest way. "Lorenzo." He stepped behind her, swept her hair aside, and fastened the necklace around her neck. His fingertips brushed her skin, sending a shiver down her spine. "There," he murmured. "You should have something that reminds you you're not invisible anymore." She placed a hand over the pendant, eyes stinging softly. "Thank you." He turned her around and kissed her, slow, deep, unhurried. A kiss that tasted like morning light and safety. When they finally pulled apart, his thumb brushed her cheek again. "Breakfast?" he asked. She grinned. "Only if you cook." He groaned dramatically. "You're asking a Mafia boss to make eggs?" "Yes," she teased. I hear you're very dangerous with scrambled eggs. He laughed, a full, warm sound she was getting addicted to, and took her hand. As they walked out of the bedroom together, fingers intertwined, Emma felt something she had never felt anywhere before. Peace. Happiness. A future that belonged to her. Lorenzo glanced down at her, eyes soft. You know, he said, I used to walk through this house and feel like something was missing. And now? She asked. Now, he said, squeezing her hand. I know exactly what it was. Her heart swelled. What? You, he answered simply. She leaned her head against his shoulder as they walked. No fear, no running, no hiding. Just love. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was blending into the background. She felt seen, wanted, loved, never invisible again. If you enjoy stories like this, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. That's how I'll know you truly liked it. Even if you're watching on your TV, grab a second to join this family of fans who love emotional and heartfelt stories. Your support means everything, and it helps us bring you even more tales like this one.